Can't see it then. One more thing. I don't know if that's going to pull, but if you could look at chat and stuff in them throughout, that would be great. It's supposed to pull up a chat, but it's just like spinning. Okay, what's up, furniture nerds? My name is Kim. I'm with Lulco, and I teach upholstery and furniture restoration from my design studio here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And today we're doing the last part in this series, how to reupholster a spoonback chair. We've already stripped it down completely. We preserved the traditional upholstered seat that was on there, but we did replace the stuffing in the back. We put new foam, we put new batting, we put new fabric on, we cleaned off the frame, and we used denatured alcohol to reconstitute the finish to fill everything in. And now we're down to putting the trim on. I said we were going to wax it today. I don't know if we'll get to that before the end of this. I want to go ahead and move forward with a welt first because that's going to take up the most amount of time. So what we're going to do today first is apply the welt trim to this chair. I have some made already, but I want to go over how I made it so you guys have that part of it when you go to do your own spoonback chair. So there's a common belief that everything should be cut on the bias when you do welt, and I'm going to explain what a bias is before we get it too hard into it. When you have a piece of fabric, it has a stretch left to right. It has a little bit of a stretch top to bottom, but it is stretchiest on the diagonal. So when you pull it from the diagonal, you really get a lot more stretch. So it is common and the most utilized practice when you cut a welt trim out of this is to cut it on the bias, and that is diagonal through the center of the fabric. On this piece, you can see where it once was a square piece of fabric, but I cut all of my welting right through the middle on the bias, which can be really wasteful in fabric. Now, the reason why you might want to cut it on the bias is to make sure when you're going around all of these curved edges that that fabric stretches and doesn't buckle. But it can be super duper wasteful to cut on the bias. This is what fabric I have left over. I might be able to make a pillow with it, but it really cut through just the middle of about 1.5 yards of my fabric. So it wastes the rest of this fabric. So when I'll say, I don't want to say we're, because I don't speak for the whole upholstery community, but when I am working on projects that just have nice, clean, straight lines, if it's not super curvy, I'll just cut it straight across the surface. If I can get one long continuous piece out of the project, I'll do that too. So I've already made some of this, but I'm going to take you over to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you how I did it. So I cut my welt strips at 1 3/4 inches wide. For this, it just has to fold over the rope and be able to sew it because we trim off all the excess so that we can glue it to the frame. But I have already gone and cut my strips and now they're ready to sew. I used a 1 3/4 inch thick piece of wood that we have cut specifically for cutting welt here. So it's not a bad idea to cut a strip that is as thick as the most common piece of welt that you're going to see, which if you're using a standard size 3/8 welt, you're going to want 1 3/4 inch wide fabric so that when it folds around and sews, it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance from the tight end of the rope to the edge of the fabric. So I've already done those parts, but I'm going to take you over to the sewing machine and I'm going to show you how I sew them together. Make sure you can see me on the screen. I can see the TV actually right there. Hold on. Let me wait for it to stop. So I would point it down at me a little bit. Tilt it a little up. You can go see what she means out there. across. Bless you. I just had to turn you guys around so I could see ya. Okay, I think that's gonna be good. Okay, so I have already cut the material, and you can see maybe you can readjust that camera. I like it to be a little closer to the action here so that we can see what's going on. Can you see the screen? I turned it around so you can see it. Oh, that's good. And then maybe, oh, I lost it. You'd scooch this stuff out of the way because I think it needs to be closer. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I can maybe, that's good, actually. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, all right. So I can't give an estimate right now. So she comes back after 2, I can give an estimate. Can't do it right now. I'm busy. She can text me pictures and measurements. I'm going to do the same thing I would want you to do. Hey, I am live on the internet right now, so I can't give an estimate. I'm doing a class, but if you want to come in after 2, I'll be available after 2, or he can take pictures and measurements and take your phone number, and then I can text you the estimate after that. So sorry. Okay, busy day. All right, so this is my industrial sewing machine. You don't need an industrial sewing machine to do this, but it does help to have one when you're sewing through upholstery fabric. I drive a Consew 206 RB-2. I've had this for about 10 years. It's my favorite sewing machine. I have, on all of my industrial sewing machines, I have a welting foot. And that is a foot that has little grooves in it for this rope to travel in. So this is a double welting foot, so it actually has a groove on this side and it has a groove on this side, so if I need to sew a double welt, I can. I keep this on the machine at all times because I can sew a single welt with it, I can sew a double welt with it, or I can sew regular with it, and I don't ever have to change the presser foot, so that works out for me. I've already started sewing this a little bit, but I'm going to run it back through. The only thing you have to do when you have a presser foot that does a lot of the work for you is fold the fabric in half around the welt cord. I use a 3/8 inch welt cord. This is a really stiff rope. When you use a stiff rope, it helps hold the shape better. If you use a loose rope, it can sometimes look wiggly and wobbly when you put it on. So having a nice welt rope is going to work a lot better and look a lot cleaner. But they do have 3/8 inch cording at Home Depot. I would consider it like clothing line wire. Anything 3/8 inch that is kind of stiff will work. So all we're going to do is make sure that these pieces are folded together in half, and it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to be cutting the excess off. And you don't have to do a back stitch either, because we're going to be cutting the ends of this off too before we glue it. So it's not really going to come unraveled once we attach it to the chair. So I have this set at a pretty high speed, but you can go as slow as you need to. I'm going to just get through the part I already sewed. I like to work in really short bursts. If you come all the way down to the bottom of the welt and fold it in half and adjust it, by the time you get to this point, it's all going to come unraveled. So I just work in a couple inch lengths, and I hold my finger on the rope so that I can make sure it stays tight into the fold, and I just keep these edges together and keep the rope riding underneath that welting channel, and that will help sew super tight into that rope, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm just going to finish off this last cord. I've already cut the other 2 cords that I need and sewn them and trimmed them, but we'll go through that whole process on this. When you have a welting foot that does the job for you, you really can pedal to the metal because it doesn't frequently jump the track. But when you're new at this, it can jump the track. So go slow if you need to. Now this is 2 pieces of material attached together, sewn on the bias. So when I get to that part of the fabric where it's sewn together, I need to be sure to open it up so that it lays flat. I'll show you what I mean in a second. All right, so now we're coming to the point where we have our fabric where it's attached to itself or attached to each other, 2 pieces of fabric attached. I'm just going to fold out that seam nice and flat and lay my rope in there so that when I fold it, it's nice and flat in this area. Almost done. Just gonna power through the rest. On to the end now. All right, now we're all set. I'm gonna just cut this free of the welt, and I have this long length of welt that I can use to glue to my chair. I'm gonna take you guys back over the chair and show you what to do next. Cheryl. Cheryl. All right. Thank you, my love. Oh gosh. Where's the height? Sure, that could work. Okay. So the next step is to cut all the excess material off so that we can glue it on. Now we've upholstered this in a very specific way so that when we go to glue our welt on, we don't see that where it was stitched and it sits nice and flat to the frame. So in order to be able to get this welt to that same point, we've got to trim off the excess. So I just flip this around, and what I'm looking to do is cut almost all the way to that stitch. Like I leave about 1/16 of an inch there, and you want to make sure you do it consistently all the way down, because if you don't, if it's higher in some areas than it is other areas, then it's going to set lopsided on your furniture. So essentially, That's as close as we're looking to get. I know I did a lot of wobbling on that. Because there's something going on with these legs, I think. Or maybe I can fix that. I got it. We fixed it. I hope you could just put it on me so I can cut this on camera. Okay, good. So I have a little bit of a ways to go. So while I'm cutting that, I'll just kind of talk to you guys about what it is that we do here. My name is Kim, and I have been teaching upholstery and furniture restoration for about 8 years, but most notably, it's really kicked off in the last 5 years. After I closed my business, I switched gears to training so that I could teach as many people how to do this as possible so that I could open my business up again, because we were so busy we couldn't keep up with the demand. So I switched gears to teaching, and I did it out of my backyard over TikTok first, and then we moved to the Ann Arbor area and I found a local makerspace. And a local makerspace is like having a gym membership for tools. They got a wood shop, they got a metal shop, they got sewing machines, they got everything you need to make stuff. And it was kind of a perfect environment for me to incubate my new business idea. And so I rented space in a classroom at the local makerspace out this way. And every weekend for 3 years, my classes would sell out, which told me that there's actually a huge market for teaching upholstery and furniture restoration, because as it turns out, there's only a couple dozen people in the United States that teach upholstery and furniture restoration. And I don't even know if most professionals would consider me one of them. But I have taught over 800 people in the past, close to 5 years. And people now come to my studio from all over the United States and sometimes Canada, and they take my classes here. I offer in-person classes that are 4 hours long. They're called Bring Your Own Project classes, where you bring your project at any stage with any level of experience, and I will walk you through from start to finish. Those classes are limited to 10 projects, but you can attend them in person or you can attend them over Zoom. They're hybrid. So if you need help with your project from home, you can attend these classes, and you'll just bring your project, sign on. It's helpful to have a tripod so that I can see what you're doing too. Ask me questions and I'll set you up with your first step and walk you through every single step as you go. I also do virtual subscription Zoom classes. We meet on Tuesdays. We have one tonight, and Sundays. You would pay $5 a month for that subscription, and it gets you 12 hours a month of Zoom classes where you can bring your project. Now that is not limited to projects, so anybody can attend that. We typically get like 5 to 10 people on the call at one time, but we did just sign up about 2,000 people over my tour to see if they were interested. So potentially you could see that attendance start to pick up. So it's nice. It's still a great learning experience. I'm working on my projects at the same time that you guys are working on your projects and just kind of yammering away about them. And then you can ask me questions as you work. I can demonstrate specific skills for you as you go, which is why it's a lot different than taking a pre-recorded upholstery class, because you can speak with me and engage with me the entire time. Another opportunity I have to learn upholstery from me is through my through my weekend retreats, where I have a fully all-inclusive weekend retreat that covers your stay, your meals, your materials, and it's bring a friend free, where you can come here. You stay in an Airbnb close to the studio, and all of your meals, everything are included. And then we go on a fabric store field trip to Discount Fabric Outlet, and then we go see my favorite upholstery supplier, Active Foam. And we learn about how foam is made and where to get it and where to get all of our upholstery supplies. And then 3 days of non-stop upholstery debauchery. We just wrapped up a light retreat this past weekend. It's just 3 days long, and it does include your meals and materials, but there's no field trip and there's no stay. You would have to arrange your own accommodations for those if you're coming in from out of town. But it's another great way to get a 3-day sprint of hands-on support while you work on your projects, and you're working alongside 6 to 8 other projects, so you're learning about them as you go too. You're not just learning from your own project, you're learning from everybody else's as well. And then finally, we do these Tutorial Tuesdays. I try to do them every Tuesday at noon, and you can follow along as I work through a project. And today we are on the last day of the Spoonback Chair. So I am working on finishing the trim up for this today. I'm almost done trimming back all the fabric, the excess part of the seam that we don't want on here. And then we're gonna start gluing it on. And there is a little bit of an order of operations of this. And what you want to consider are the parts that are going to overlap. So we're going to take a look at that because I haven't thought about it, although I have done these before. Okay, great. I got that done. Hopefully we won't have to make any more. I'm just going to wrap this up, put it on the seat, and get it ready to go. So the parts of the chair that are going to need welt are the outside edge of the front of the seat, this part down by the bottom of the seat, and then the back of the chair has outer trim on the outside too. So we're going to be gluing it there. Now, if you've been watching this whole series, you've been watching how we put this together to make sure that our trim can sit nice and flat and clean on here. For this project, I'm going to start here with the front and work my way around there. And then I'm going to go to the back and I'm going to work my way there. And then the last piece I'm going to do is the seat, because there might be some areas where these piping overlap, and I want to make sure that I don't paint myself into a corner. So I'm going to lay this chair back so that we can access the back of the seat a little bit easier. And we are going to put some foam underneath the wood so we don't scratch it up, because we just redid the finish. And there we are. So we're going to start this welt up inside where the arm goes here. Let me see if I can turn this. You could make it go higher. Probably the legs are going to have to extend. I want to be able to see the whole thing from here to the top. Perfect. Yay, great. So the first bit, we're going to start in here where it's actually going to poke down inside the seat. So we're going to trim the extra rope off of the tip of this. We got scissors? No, I just had them. There we go. So that there's no visible rope. But I don't have to do anything to finish this end because it's going to be down into the frame and nobody is going to see it. You'll want to like place this before you glue it to make sure you know what you're doing. And then you're going to want to have your hot glue gun ready. I like to use a precision tip hot glue gun because I'm a mess with hot glue. So this has got a teeny tiny little end to it that is going to keep it nice and clean. For the first bit that I have to shove down in the frame, I'm going to start with the hot glue on the welt, and that's because it's a hard area to reach with a hot glue gun and I don't want to burn or melt anything in the process. But I just put a little bead of hot glue right there, and this is high temperature hot glue with a high temperature hot glue gun, and I'm just going to push that down in and push it up against the frame into this groove. Harder to see down here in this groove, but when we get closer to around here, you guys are going to see how this is done. I think, Cross, you should be able to zoom in, not yet, but I'm going to tell you when I get close to there, when I'm like right in this area, so that you can see what I'm doing. If you want to test the zoom button right now. Perfect. That's actually, you can leave it that close. And then when we're ready to go closer, I'll let you know. So for the rest of this, I'm actually going to apply the glue into the channel first, so that way I can just set the rope down in there. Now you guys can't see a ton from this angle, so I'm going to wait to describe it until I get into an area where you can see it better. But I'm just putting my glue down in the channel, and I'm gently placing the welt on top, and then I just rub my finger down to press it into place. If you get hot glue on your fabric, let it set there and peel it off once it's cooled and dry. If you try to wipe it in, it's going to wipe it in there permanently. Okay, so I'm getting a little closer to where you guys can see. Let me just do one more little round here. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to do this same pushing motion. This hides the seam from the welt itself, and it also hides the staples from where we attach the fabric. And when we put the glue down, it actually squeezes out and comes up around the edges of the welt on each side, so it glues it to the wood and it glues it to the fabric right here, which makes it permanent. I think we can get a little closer now. A little more. Kind of real zoomed in. A little more. Good. Okay, so I'm going to lay another bead of glue up here, keeping it inside the channel. You only want to do this a couple inches at a time because the glue can cool quickly, and if it cools too quickly, you're not going to get a permanent adhesion. So now I'm just kind of rubbing this out. And now I'm going to come through right here and do the same thing. Don't touch the tip of the hot glue gun with your bare fingers. That was a dumb move. Okay. Another bead of glue. I'm trying to keep it as clean as I can, just a couple of inches. I'm also pulling this kind of tight so that it sets nice and straight. And then just working my way all the way up. Now the way that I got this to look so nice and clean was when we were attaching all of our materials, the only thing that gets stapled up close to this wood is the fabric. There's, you could see a little bit of batting under there, but we didn't layer any batting right next to the frame, and some just got pushed out a little bit. But the fabric is the only thing going up to the frame, so that the foam and batting on this side create a nice little channel for that to settle in, and it makes it look really nice. Do we have any comments anywhere, Crows? And be careful not to glue any extra bits. And just push down with your hands. If you get squeeze out, like I got a little piece of squeeze out right here, I'm going to let that cool, let it dry. I can go back in, separate it from the fabric with a little razor blade this way, and just peel it right off. Okay, now we're going to work our way up this round side. But this part, when you do this part, it can cause squeeze out. You want to make sure that you're not dragging that squeeze out across the surface. Is that from a hot glue gun? looking so nice. Look at that. I used to be so terrible at welt. It was so messy. Now I love to do it, but I wondered if I ever would like to do it because I hated it so much. I prefer a single welt to a double welt. Double welt is kind of hard to control because it's so stiff. But sometimes it's really hard to cover up your work with a single welt, which is why I learned how to do it so neatly and cleanly because I hate double welt so much. And we're almost halfway done with the front of the seat back. The next step is going to be the back of the seat back. Look at that. I thought she came back in. Oh. I remember seeing her. I think I gave her my cell phone so she could send me pictures and measurements so I could give her an estimate. Zoom out a little bit, Cross. Just like one push out. Yeah. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Keeping it moving. I get a lot of hate on the internet for using hot glue, but believe it or not, this is the industry standard. If we hand stitched it to it, it wouldn't be sticking to where the staples are. It would be just attached to the fabric. It wouldn't do a great job of hiding. They did used to use like a hide glue for this. Water soluble, so sometimes that dries and cracks and falls apart over time and then doesn't stick. But I promise you, if you use a high temperature hot glue with a high temperature hot glue gun, it will permanently adhere, so much so that you're probably going to remove staples when you try to drag it out of there. That's just a fact. I'm very lucky to have my husband here to help me move things around, but you should consider having tables and everything near you that you can set things on so you don't accidentally set your hot glue gun on your project. I've done that. That's not smart. I don't use any special brand of high temperature hot glue. They have it at the hardware store. They used to have it at Joann's too, but we all know how that ended. Okay, almost done with this side. Looks like we're gonna have a little bit of extra, which is nice. I only sewed the parts together for the parts that they were needed. You might be tempted to sew one big continuous welt together, but that's going to leave you with seams in some weird places. So I only do it so that there's only like at least one seam or as little seams as possible. Hi, Karen. It's this pushing it into place that makes it look nice and clean. And it only takes a couple seconds for it to dry and cool, which is cool. Almost done with this side. I'm bummed. I'm bummed that I can't see her. She's shocked. Oh yeah? Cute. Tonight at the studio, everyone, is Stitch and Bitch, which is an event that I host every other Tuesday from 4 to 8. It's a free opportunity for anyone to come and use the studio and the tools and get support. It's mostly bitching, not a lot of stitching, but it's fun. And we've been getting a lot of young kids here teaching themselves how to make clothes, which has been super rad to watch. And I'm coming up to the end here. I got to figure out how much material I need to cram down there in the frame so that it disappears. There we go. Make sure that it's not going to be too long because you don't want to catch yourself off guard after you've got glue attached. It does look a little bit long. Okay. That is going to fit. So I'm going to get myself a little close to the edge, but not all the way, and finish off the glue in the channel. And then before I stick it down into the frame, I'm going to put that little bit of glue on the edge of the welt before I put it into the chair. And then you just got to be careful not to touch the seat with it. So I'm going to push this seat back, then push it into place and hold it there for a second. Excellent. Woo-hoo-hoo. If you want to pull the camera around, I'll put this up. You pull the camera around front. Look at that. Now I still have some hand stitching to do where these folds are, which is going to pull in the fabric in this area and tighten it. Let me point out. So these wrinkles will go away when I hand stitch this area, but this is looking pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to do the outside back of the chair. I'm just going to turn this around. And then tip it down. And I don't think the wood touches like this. All right. Not enough. It's not going to be there long enough. Don't leave your chair like this overnight because it will leave a mark in your foam. But for the few minutes that we're going to have it like this, you won't see it. I want to make sure that I'm going around and trimming off all of the batting that's sticking out because this is a flat surface area here and it is not going to have the same sort of ditch that I was enjoying on the front of this chair to keep it looking nice and clean. All right, I think we're good. Okay, now you can bring that back here. I'm gonna start down here. So this bit actually comes around and sticks inside the frame on this other side. And then it's gonna come down around this way and come around this way and come back up that arm. So that's what we have to start on first is this bottom part. And I don't want that rope to be visible this time. And it's kind of in a weird spot where it ends. So I'm gonna unstitch the seam a little bit here so that I can take out the rope. I unstitch the seam, taking out the rope, cutting off the rope so that I can sort of like cover it up, I'm just making 2 little snips at the top of this rope so that I can fold one side in and glue it, fold the other side in and glue it, fold this side in and glue it, and make that look like a finished end at the other side. But there's a lot of excess material here too, so we're gonna get rid of it as we go. So here, I'm just putting a little bit of glue at the top of that rope, bending my fabric down, pushing it so that it touches, and I'm going to cut off the extra rope that is not stuck to the glue and get rid of that. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. It's kind of like wrapping a present. Wrap that down, cut off the excess that's not glued down. And then I'm going to do the top bit. Be careful not to glue your fingers. This one looks like a squeeze out, so I'm just going to use my scissors to fold it back. And then pinch this end down. Now, this end is covered in case any of it is visible when I glue it in up here. And I actually can't see to do that from this angle, so I do need to set it up. Thanks, my love. And I can like bring it to where the last welt is, so they kind of look like they're part of the same deal. So I'm going to start by putting a little bit of glue here. Push my seat back, bring those two together, and bring it around. Now I'm just doing the front first, then I'm going to glue it around this side, and then I'm going to come to the bottom. I just need to do this in small, teeny, tiny increments. Okay. And I'm still just adding glue to the welt right now because it feels like more destructive to glue it to the fabric, because I just want it to glue where it touches down. And now we're going to bring it around here and put it on this side. Now I put the glue, like this doesn't have a channel that I can put glue in, so I'm going to be using the method of attaching it to the welt first and then pushing it down. That way I can control the squeeze out. So just a little bit at a time, right over top of that row of staples, which is why we trim it so close. And we really are just putting that seam right down on the bottom and then pushing it down. Now I got a little bit of squeeze out at the top here. That is easily removed after you finish. Just let it dry and cool and it'll peel right off. We got a little bit of a curve left I want to handle before I go any higher. And sometimes it helps to throw the rest of your welt up high so that it doesn't fall down, the weight of it doesn't make it difficult for you. Looking pretty good. Hard to see from that angle, but let's flip it around and see what we got. Now you guys can kind of see how we've done so far. Little squeeze out on the side. I just peeled it right off. Definitely wait till it dries to do that. You're going to want to keep your glue sticks handy. And again, this time around, I'm choosing to apply the glue directly to the welt itself, because this is the end that I need to stick to make sure I can hide the seam when I glue it too. And I'm just pushing down real hard, and that glue squeezes out around both sides evenly so that I can keep everything nice and hidden. And I'm just little by little making sure I cover that up. And then I give it a nice flat push to make sure all the sides stick down where they need to. So far, so good. Hard to do this with a hot glue gun that doesn't have a precision tip, because so much comes out. This really allows you a little bit more control. You get to an area that didn't glue down all the way, like right here, you can see just a little bit of that staple area right there. You can take a regulator, put a little bit of glue right on the tip, get it right inside where the problem area is, and then push it down. Hold it down till it dries. And that had a little bit of squeeze out right there too. We're going to go ahead and remove that. See that little dot? We're going to remove that later. The welt is now sticking to the fabric there. You can see a couple areas squeeze out right here. On this one, it's already dry, so I just go back through and I just peel it right off. On the fabric, it might stick a little bit harder, but you can just go back through and peel that off too. If it doesn't come off the fabric, acetone will remove it, but acetone might also melt your fabric, so make sure you check that. Test a piece before you put it on your furniture. Looking good. That time I got a bunch of squeeze out, but it is just like peeled up there, so that's an easy one to peel away. Now I can see the groove a little bit better here. And from the angle I'm at, it's just easier to put it right on the furniture. You can switch on and off depending on what is most comfortable to you, because you want to be comfortable when you're doing this or you're going to mess it up. Some more squeeze out, but that's all right. It will come out. Just try not to smear it with your fingers when you do this pressing motion. harder on the outside edge to not get squeeze out because there's no channel here. It's just flat. So we're seeing a lot of squeeze out because there's nowhere for it to go. Also, remember I said I'm a mess with a hot glue gun. We still have some areas to hand stitch on the front. We get to those last, but I might get to those after we do this because I'm just going to do this to the seat again, and you guys have already seen it. So I'd rather get to the hand stitching part and finish the bottom if we don't have time off camera. Excuse me. So that you can see all of the actual steps. And we're still, like when we're creating our own lines, because we don't have a channel here, you want to make sure that you're leaving everything nice, looking nice and clean and straight. Here I'm going to use my regulator to push back a piece of fabric. We should have done this one first. It's taken the longest. Ooh. You can really see the squeeze out like on these sides, but it dries solid, so it just peels right off. Thanks. I gotta blow my nose, guys. Sorry. Was it really loud? Did Karen bring more books? Or she came to get some old ones? You hear me? Did Karen bring more books?
Yeah, she's
yeah. That's great. I hope she texts me about it. If you're just joining me, I'll do an introduction again. My name is Kim, and I teach upholstery and furniture restoration from my design studio here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I am showing you how to finish reupholstering a spoonback chair today. We are on the trim part. This is the last part in the series. I offer classes both in person and online. I even offer weekend retreats that include everything, including your stay. So you can come out here and vacation with me this summer. My light camps are now bring 2 friends free. We had our first set of 3 people at this last retreat. And I always bring in volunteers at every retreat, and most of the volunteers have never done this before, so I allowed the extra friend this time, and it actually turned out really good to have that extra volunteer around to help out with everyone. So we're going to let everybody do it moving forward. So if you're coming to a light camp, you can bring 2 friends with you, and it is a really good time. It includes all of your materials and your meals. It doesn't include your stay. Light camp, you have to find your own accommodations, but there are hotels crawling around this place. We're right off the expressway, so there's a lot of hotels nearby. Yeah, you can see the level of improvement from here where we got a lot of squeeze out. So now everything is looking much cleaner. The camera, yeah. Oh, I just dragged some hot glue. This is just a string of it, but I almost just rubbed it into it across the top. So I'm going to let that cool there, and then we'll come back and remove it in a minute. You can see how the strings kind of make their way around everything. If you can't get the hot glue off, unfortunately, that does mean that you have to redo the welt, and sometimes it might also mean you have to redo that back panel fabric. So I just need to get through the next few minutes and hope I make it. You can see where I dragged a little bit more on there.
Don't ask what kind of glue that is.
High temperature hot glue with a high temperature hot glue gun. So this gun is on high, and this is just a generic brand of high temperature hot glue. High temperature hot glue with a high temp gun liquefies more than a craft glue. It also takes a little bit longer to cool, so you have more time to work with it. And it is a permanent adhesion from the welt to the fabric and the frame. But if you go too slow and let the glue dry too quickly before you attach, then it won't attach properly. Almost done with this side, and then we're gonna do the hand stitching, and I'll put the parts around the front if we have time here. If we don't have time, I'll just do it off camera, because you guys have seen enough of this example to understand what's happening here. I also highly recommend silicone fingertips. Those will protect your fingers. I don't have any. I did have some. I don't know what happened to them. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. We're going to try and find them. Currently, we are live on Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. So we're trying to keep track of all those comments because they are not showing up on OBS. So I can't see them all from where I'm at. Oh, glue. And this is when it's good to have a nice clean surface to glue to and not a bunch of batting flopping out about. Because batting is harder to remove after you've added hot glue to it. Ooh, that is a lot of squeeze out right there. It's okay. we're going to handle it. I'm kind of holding it there until the bead cools so that it doesn't just like leave a residue on either side. That's harder to remove. I've already tested this fabric though. It cleans well with acetone. I'm pushing up real hard. Looks like I dragged my hot glue right across the surface of that fabric right there. You can see it right there. That will come off. Just leave it. Leave it till the end. Cross, if you want to get me the acetone, I'd like to show some proof of concept before I finish this. And a razor blade, but just the blade, not the whole knife. Yeah. Actually, I will just use a scrap piece of this fabric. It's fine. Maybe even a couple of Q-tips. Looking good. Let's bring it around a little bit this way. You can see that squeeze out right here, right here. You don't want to leave that looking like that. They will notice. You need to clean that up. It's way less messy when you have a nice clean channel to put it down in, but there's no foam on the back of this. There's batting, but it's not enough to create dimension where I need it. Oof. Finishing up this side. This has got to come up and around and go back down inside on the front of the chair. Bless you. I'm going to get cut off kind of what I don't need here. Finish the bottom half and then flip it around so that I can do the top finishing. And help me flip this around. Hold on. Okay. So on the top, this has to come up, over, on the inside, and go down in the frame. Let's do the up and over first, so we can get a better idea how much we're going to have to cut. Again, I'm putting this on the welt this time, because I can control it better. And I'm going to check the distance here. This end does not need to be finished because it goes down into the frame. And do the top part first. Check fit. I think I have too much still. Yeah. Okay. Now, before I shove it down the frame, I'm going to put the glue on the welt. Oops. And very carefully stick it down in there without touching the fabric. And then those two pieces come together almost seamlessly down there. So now let's address the squeeze out. So we'll see if we can get some of this glue off with some acetone. I'm going to turn this around. I want to start with kind of the most detrimental part first, which is this little bit we got on the face of the fabric. This right here. I always use a piece of the actual fabric of the chair to do this. One, because it's my opportunity to test the fabric to make sure it's not going to melt. And two, it scrubs it better because it's the same nap. We use a big gallon of acetone, and because we're children, we just poke 2 little holes in the end so we don't have to mess around with this child-proof cap. So I'm just gonna put some acetone on my fabric, double check and make sure it's not gonna melt, everything's in good shape. And for this area right here, I'm just gonna kind of go over a little bit with acetone until I make it a little bit wet. And then, now this is the danger part, I'm going to just scrape it lightly with a razor blade. That kind of combs it. I don't want to cut it. I'm like scraping it off the top of the surface. Sometimes you don't even need the acetone. If it's superficially on there, sometimes you can just scrape it with a razor blade. So a little bit residue towards the top, here at the bottom. I'm going the opposite direction now, in case anything got laid down in that velvet. You can see a little bit sticking here. Don't be afraid to put more acetone on it if you need to. I'm just going against the grain so that it combs out any excess. Nice. Now I'm going to take my acetone, or actually I'm going to try just combing it with my velvet. See what happens. We still have a little bit there. I'm going to put a little bit more acetone on it. And give it a scrub. I don't think we'll have to go back over this with anything. I'll take a dry piece of velvet, comb it down. And that wet spot dries quickly because it's acetone and acetone evaporates. So while we're waiting for that to dry, I kind of want to show you what's going on here with the squeeze out. This looks horrendous and messy, but it can come off. You got to be very careful. I'm going to take my razor blade and I'm going to just cut in real close to the welt on this side, but I'm just like kind of scraping against the fabric. I'm not pushing into the fabric because I don't want to cut the fabric, but I'm separating that hot glue from this side of the welt. And I think I did it. I just want to come through where it might still be attached. Now I could just peel that right off. Just like that. Nice. And there are a lot of spots for me to clean here. I'm not going to do that all with you guys today, but I will have to go through and do that to everywhere there's a little bit of glue sticking out so that we don't have any showing. We got just a little bit more on this side, so I'm taking my razor blade from the other direction. Again, I'm not cutting fabric. I'm just scraping underneath where that hot glue goes. Like separating it from the fabric. It's just like a precision tool at this point. And then if there's any residue of glue left, you can come back with the acetone and try and take it out. But you don't want acetone to get up underneath where your welt was, because that is going to eat the glue that's holding your welt down. That came off real nice, and look, that disappeared while you guys were watching. I'm always pretty impressed with myself when I can make it work. Okay, we're gonna spend the last little bit of time here doing some hand stitching. So let me get this out. If you could unzoom across. So now that we know that it's possible to clean up a hot glue massacre live on TikTok, now we can work on some of the finishing areas of this, which is to hand stitch these corners here. So I'm going to go get curved needle. I don't think we have any more green thread, but it's like close to this color as we can get. It shouldn't matter what thread you use when you use it, because we're doing a ladder stitch, so it should disappear. But we usually don't have every color of the rainbow thread around the shop, because it doesn't matter unless you're doing a top stitch. Yeah, like a brown or something. fine. So we have these small little areas here that are just folded. And if you don't hand stitch it, when someone sits down on here, this can like get loose and come loose. So we're gonna hand stitch these areas so that they don't come loose. And I can see right here where it was setting on the, what's it called? These guys can't say words today. So I wanted to brush that down so you can't see those. But velvet can get damaged permanently that way. Okay, so I'm using 200-pound nylon wax bonded upholstery thread. And I think you could probably use a lighter thread for this purpose, but this is just what we have around the shop. This will break through your skin before it breaks itself. So I like to double it up when I'm sewing. I folded it in half, and I'm just going to feed both of the open ends through the eye of the needle, this curved needle, which is going to make it infinitely easier to sew. And then when I get to the end of that, I'm going to put the loop over top of the needle like this, pull it down so that it ties it to the needle. If I'm sewing and I mess up, like this end is attached to the chair, you can go back by taking this loop off the needle and pulling it out this way, fixing your stitch, and then going back through, rethreading the needle by putting that loop through the eye of the needle and fishing that loop over the hook of the needle. That's how it's done. All right, let me get a chair. Ooh. So we're going to use what's called a ladder stitch for this. And we're also going to take this opportunity to take any loose material as it stands here, see how it kind of wrinkles, and pull it up into this fold where it belongs. So a hand stitch is going to hold all of that together. So the ladder stitch, I'm going to pantomime it for you first, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to go up into this fold. We're going to go across to this fabric. Then we're going to go down, over, down, over, down, over, down, over. Again, we're going up into the fold, down to the other side, over to the fold, down, over to the other side, down, over to the other side, down. That's a ladder stitch. So I highly suggest you watch YouTube, because there's a lot of great videos out there to show you how to do it. So I always start my stitch at the top, like corner where this goes. I'm just going to start it in the fold, like at the very hump of that fold, and go up almost all the way to the top corner, but not quite all the way, because if you go too high, you're going to bind that corner in and it's not going to look nice and clean. I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail here so that I can tie a knot in a second. And then from here, I'm going directly across into the fabric next to it. Cross, can you zoom in on this? More. Good. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So I'm going directly across into the fabric next to it. If I don't go directly across, if I go down or up, you might see that stitch, and I'm trying to make it disappear. So I'm going directly across, and then I'm going to come a little bit down, like quarter to a half inch down. And I want that hole to actually come out directly across from where that other stitch is. I'm a little low, so I'm just gonna, from where I first went in. So I'm gonna pull that down. Now I've got one stitch at the top. If I pull that together tight, it disappears. The next thing I'm going to do is tie a little knot here so that I don't lose my stitch. So I'm going to tie these parts together nice and tight so it pulls that stitch together. Excuse me. Make another knot so that it stays put. And then I'm going to cut off the excess string of this tail. I leave a little bit and then I just tuck it right inside that fold. Now the actual edge of this fold where it needs to go is like somewhere over in this direction. See, I've gotten a little bit of blood on here from poking myself already. Blood comes out with hydrogen peroxide. You can see that little dot right there. So we'll go back through and take that out with peroxide. So I'm going back into the fold directly across from where this comes out, coming a little bit down. Pulling that through so that when those two come together, they will disappear. And now I gotta figure out how much of this material needs to tuck in before I make my next hole, because it's got to be directly across from it. So I go directly across, come a little bit down. Pull that stitch. Make sure we're not tied in knots. Pull that together, and those should come together. Now we don't want them to bunch up. Not the look. We want this to look as machine stitched as possible. Straighten this area up. And I'm smoothing out my seam with the tip of my needle too. So here, this is going to go straight across. I might even push that fabric in because I know that's quite a distance to pull. Go into the fold directly across where it's going to make the smallest stitch. And come down just a little bit. Right out of that fold again. And pull those together. Now, if you get bunching, potentially it's because you went too far, or potentially it's just because it's pulling it weird. So I'm going to come through here, smooth out these stitches with my needle. See how that looks. And that looks okay. That's going okay. All right. So now I'm going, let's push this back directly across into the other side of the fabric. A little bit down. And even if it comes loose like this, you should still be able to pull it all together and make those stitches disappear. Look at that. All right, now we might be able to move. So I think this one should have come out a little bit further because I see a little bit of a wrinkle right here that I don't think I can get to resolve. Hold on. Nope, never mind. I resolved it. So I'm going directly across from the last stitch that I did into the fold. Back out. Pull down and over. We're going over again and down. And here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but the stitch that's above, I can see it a little bit. There's a little bit of a brown stitch. So I want to redo that because I don't like the way that looks. So I just take that loop that I pulled over my needle, pull it back, unthread my needle, and then I can just go a couple stitches back. I'm gonna go one more. I feel like that went a little down too far too. And then and just keep going all the way down. Oh geez, I forgot to thread my needle for that one. Super smart. So now I can just put that loop back through the needle hole. Flip it over the needle, and I'm back in business. Over, down. Back over. Careful not to pull up or down, because that'll give you a crooked stitch. This is why we use a curved needle though, because it's way easier to navigate. Than a straight one. This takes practice to get it to look nice. I was doing this hand stitch wrong up until a couple years ago. And I hated it. I hated hand stitching because of it, because I couldn't get it to look really nice and clean. Very good. Now, if you pull too tight, you'll be able to see like the variation of where the stitches go. Let me show you. You can see it more if it's too tight. So I like, before I like tie everything down, I like to stretch it out, maybe run my needle through the groove and try and get everything pulled at the same tension all the way across. Okay, Cross, can you back that up? Excellent. That corner is looking a little pointy to me, but I might go through before I glue this welt on, pull this fabric down a little tighter right there, tighten that up there. I'm coming to the bottom of it so I can tie it off. So this is the last stitch in the row. Good. This I can tighten up by taking a couple staples out here and pulling this down and stapling that back. It's way easier than trying to adjust everything here. And I'm just gonna make a little simple knot down here at the bottom. We have our welt that's gonna get glued to the top of that, so the knot will be hidden. Just gonna make a loop, run my needle through it, and I'm gonna do that 3 times. Just a tight little knot. At the very bottom. and then trim off the excess. I leave a little nub so it doesn't come unraveled. That'll get glued down with the hot glue. Take the last minute in, smooth that out. And I do have a pull here that I'm not super happy with. So before I put the welt in, I might go through and redo this whole seam, or see if there's a way I can put one stitch in there and pull that down. But there's that from that side. Yeah, and it looks a little choppy here in this area, and I like it to look more smooth. So I will go back through there and redo that, but I did want to show you guys what that looks like before we end this, which that's what we're doing right now. So okay, good job today, guys. We got the trim on the top and the back of this chair. We learned how to remove hot glue from our fabric with acetone if we make a mistake. And then the last part, I just got to put this welter on the bottom after I finish hand stitching the corners. But that's it for this chair. We've reupholstered an entire spoonback chair. So you can go back and watch the series from start to finish, from stripping it to preserving the traditional upholstered seat, putting new foam and batting, putting fabric on, cutting the trim, staining and cleaning the frame. We did a lot of stuff in this project. So you can go back and watch the entire series. It's up on YouTube now. And I believe this records right afterwards. So you should be able to watch the recording right after today. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new project. If you have suggestions on what you'd like to see or learn, put them in the comments. I'll do my best. We'll see you later.